What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you the Snyder cut of our podcast this week. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my co-host Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, release the Snyder takes.
I take great pride that we do not make 3-hour podcasts like other people out there. We are concise and efficient, and that's part of the appeal.
Yeah, I mean, you just want to come and find out if you should listen to this album or not, if you should watch this thing or not, and kind of get the lowdown on what's going on in pop culture. That's what we do here. So hit that subscribe button if you're listening on youtube.com/nostalgiapod. If you're listening any other way, follow us on Twitter at nostalgiapod. Yeah, we got a couple of big things today. You know,
A lot of big things. This is a pretty notable day.
it feels like there might be like big things down the pike. Like I think people are feeling a little bit too relaxed, COVID wise. You know, we got locked down in Miami right now, state of emergency. But even though it's not over, 70 million Americans are vaccinated. You know, looking like maybe by end of summer we'll start to be getting concerts and movies again. There's hope. So, and this weekend felt like an event weekend, I'll say.
Yeah, definitely. On the concert front, I think it's really just going to be 2022. Kenny Chesney just postponed his tour till next year. A lot of people have already done that, and Taylor Swift straight up canceled her tour, right? Like, it seems like the arena tour stuff, like, they're just going to, they'd rather be late than early with it at this point. So I think concerts are really, and like the like big scale events of that magnitude are really the last things to return. But movie going, LA, NYC are back. We are seeing that slowly come back in the box office. I think that'll continue to be a very slow growth, but we're getting there in a
We're
sense.
getting there
That's
for
something.
sure. Do you think Governor's Ball will happen? Currently
Yeah.
slated for September.
No, I don't
Yeah.
think so. I think you just no music festivals this year and go balls to the fucking wall 2022. I want to go to Coachella in 2022. Fuck it.
Ah. Well,
A lot of people have shared that in the pandemic, that like the sense of regret and longing for missed opportunities at this point. Do it now. There's no time like now, and by now I mean 2022.
well, Dave, you can do that podcast with your flower crown on from the field in Coachella. Looking
Me
forward
and
to
Vanessa
that.
Hudgens.
Why don't we start though today with maybe not necessarily an event album, but definitely one that took me by surprise as being probably my favorite album of the weekend. Benny the Butcher dropping the sequel, The Plugs I Met Too, with Harry Fraud. Um, yeah, going into this, I mean, aware of Benny as a guy who puts out pretty solid music. I'd say I would very much consider him like a B C tier rapper at this point, but really just putting out like quality stuff most of the time, even if it's not always like must listen, always pleasurable. And I found this album to be really, really solid, start to finish. I put it on for a run, and I was like, we'll see where Benny's gonna take me. And it was like the perfect vibe for my run.
Running on that cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. So, what did you think of Benny the Butcher's "The Plugs I Met Too"?
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing with the whole Griselda crew, Benny chief among them, is that because they release so much music, there definitely is like some ups and downs, but the floor is quite evidently high,
Yeah.
and it's never like really bad. It's just it might not stand out as say songs you already heard from them before or something, and Griselda's they've been cooking for a while. This crew out of Buffalo, and it's been waiting for a time to get in because they've been making so much music. I mean, just in 2020, you had the November 2019, you get that Griselda group album, Conway the Machine, West Side Gun, and Benny the Butcher. They're all related. And since then, 2020, Benny dropped an album and a tape. Conway dropped 3 albums, and West Side Gun dropped 3 albums. So if you are into Griselda, if you are into this technical ability, throwback rap, sample heavy, 90s indebted style, they are flooding the zone with this and are definitely the most popular people doing it at this time. And it's kind of cool to see like real throwback rappers finding a lot of success in this regard. A few of them are, Rock Nation managed at this point. I think Empire distributes for Griselda Records. So the come up is well known, and Benny got a lot of accolades for Burden of Proof, his album last fall.
Hmm.
But getting the sequel to The Plugs I Met, which was probably the breakout tape from him, that's definitely my favorite project of his. Uh, Unexpected again. I feel like that's kind of how they make music. Is it just comes out when it comes out? And like, oh, there's more Griselda to listen to. Sick. And because it's those guys, in this case Benny, it's usually pretty good. And like Harry Fraud, I've liked Harry Fraud primarily from his Action Bronson collaborations, but he's a New York based producer. He's done a lot of stuff. Um, he definitely came into play on The Plugs I Met too. I think it's like again, it really has that throwback vibe going
Yeah.
on, and Benny's such a nice storyteller that it's a great match.
Yeah. No, it's a very smooth album, I'd say. It really flows from one track to another. And I think even more impressively, it feels like Benny's album, but he definitely lets uh some guests come in and show off on this and then takes the reins right back. And um, you know, that old school vibe you're talking about, I feel like we talk so often about like Chance the Rapper being like the best like late night host rapper ever because he just kind of like lets people come on and shine and almost like overtake him sometimes on his
Sure.
songs.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, Chance has had his fair share of like going on and murdering guest verses too. So not to bag on Chance necessarily, but I really feel like to have that control of the album where you can let someone else shine. Like Two Chains on this, I thought gave an excellent verse. Um, and then kind of take the energy right back is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'll say Two Chains on Plug Talk I thought was a pretty choice feature because the synergy made a lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
Two Chains, like Benny the Butcher and the rest of Griselda, a rapper that found mainstream acceptance and success a little
A-Rod.
older in life than the average rapper usually does. So I thought that made a lot of sense there. I was actually quite impressed on overall featuring Chinks because Chinks, of course, is
Mhm.
a New York rapper who was killed back in 2015. So actually find, I think, a really solid performance, posthumous performance, so long after the death. It kind of surprised me. I think that song's really good.
Yeah, no, I actually really liked the very like first like four or five tracks a lot. Even like Fat Joe coming in, I was like, oh, Fat Joe, like this is kind of
Yeah.
fun. Uh,
Gotta say, Fat Joe dropping the China virus line at the worst possible time.
yeah,
Just a fucked up thing to say. And he
yeah,
did acknowledge
the
that.
Wuhan flu. Yeah, not
Yeah.
cool.
He said that he recorded that a year ago, like right before this pandemic started. I was like, hey, even if that is 100% true, both him and Benny and Empire, like, you can edit this out
Yeah,
later, right? Like
right.
that's unforgivable, I think, especially the timing. Like, come on, man, read the room.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But what else did you like about this album? Or what surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the vibes, man.
Yeah.
The storytelling, I think, especially towards the end, the song like "Survivor's Remorse," Benny the Butcher, um, like the Griselda guys, is about that life. Was about that life. He survived a robbery attempt and got shot. End of last year, Conway has Bell's palsy on his face because of a shooting. Like these guys are real in that regard, and they have stories to tell. And a song "Survivor's Remorse," you can imagine what that's about. So it's just the storytelling, and again, over like the crisp throwback vibes that Harry Fraud is really adept at bringing. It's really pleasant. And also, refreshing because you don't get a lot of rap in this traditional sense these days.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Any tracks you want to shout out? Any that we should add to the playlist?
Yeah, I already mentioned overall with Jinx
Mhm.
and Plug Talk with Two Chains. I like those ones a lot, but nothing really, didn't stand out to me. I thought Longevity was cool because again, nice to hear from Jim Jones, another
Mhm.
fellow New Yorker. Jim Jones definitely not the most active rapper these days, but thought that was actually pretty good as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we'll probably add Plug Talk to the playlist. Check that out. Nostalgia Best of 2020. It'll be in the show notes.
2021.
2021. Yeah, let's not go back to 2020. Lana Del Rey, Dave, back in 2019, dropped one of our favorite albums, Norman fucking Rockwell. And I think,
Unexpectedly,
yeah,
because not we were not Lana Del Rey fans going into that by any stretch of the imagination.
yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing is it felt like at that point Lana was finding this like ability to take her like Americana, kind of like weird vibes into like
Folk.
yeah, into like folk mainstreamness, and it all kind of worked. And it seemed like Jack Antonoff like had kind of like been the coach she needed to get the best out of her, and it was just exciting because it felt like
Mhm.
okay, Lana's finally like arrived for like the mainstream, like beyond
Right.
the
I mean,
yeah.
as you expect from Jack Antonoff being so involved, there was a hint of pop
Mhm.
melody on a lot of those tracks without it compromising the vibe and expectations you expect from Lana Del Rey. So as you said, it felt like a new high for sure, but also like a chance for for more, obviously. But Chemtrails Over the Country Club, an album she had announced in one form or another soon after Norman
Mhm.
fucking Rockwell, finally here after some delays. And Jack Antonoff's still involved, but I don't think it's gonna give many people the same impression as the last one did, which had many Grammy nominations as a result.
Yeah, and we'll get to this, but with a lot of the Jack stuff we've heard, at least from the production side recently, it's been a lot of like stripped back, toned back type stuff. Potentially this is a result of COVID quarantine. People being a little bit more like introspective with their just lived experience right now, but that continues on Chemtrails over the Country Club. And even though I think there's still some like really standout moments for me on this album, and I still think the album's like decently good, uh, does not come close to Norman fucking Rockwell for me, and I feel a bit let down, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely feel let down just because there was not a lot of songs that I was like, I want to hear that one again. You
Yeah.
know, because again, I was not a Lana fan going in, so a lot of those early hallmarks of hers, you know, didn't really do much for me. But on Motherfucking Rockwell, songs like "The Greatest" and the "Doing Time" cover and Mariner's Apartment Complex and Venice Bitch being apart from the weird instrumental outro on that song. But like a lot of those songs, because Jack was given just a hint of melody and pushing Lana just the right way, uh, those songs are actually like really sticky and like re-listenable. And I think in this case, it feels a lot like the old stuff.
Mhm.
And that's just not appealing to what I want to hear from her. I think there's some moments, but yeah, just generally, I think the lack of like accessible pop melody on this one,
Yeah.
and like just I think also it's kind of like more stripped down, more acoustic again. Like
Right.
there's just not a lot for me to latch onto.
Yeah, this is real like folk Americana, Lana Del Rey being weird type stuff. I mean, even at some points kind of delves into country and I think there's like some moments that I really loved. So, for example, I think Dark but Just a Game was a real standout for me. It's toned down, but it has this like R&B ness to it. Just like really like it's like that track is all about the vibes for me. I really thought like the moment in Wild at Heart when Lana's like washed out vocals like shift to like the more like clear and like concise and like the guitars kind of come in. I thought that was a great moment. Saw you shaking your head.
Yeah, Wild at Heart's definitely the highlight on the album for me. Just the way that whole song builds up to the chorus, I think that one's really great and most reminds me of
Norman
NFR.
fucking Rockwell. Yeah, no, definitely. I also think not all those who wonder are lost. I mean, on the one hand, the track is kind of a whatever to me, but I'm thinking about the TikTokness of it all, and Lana has certainly had a number of her songs turned into TikTok trends. I think this is one that we'll see on social media posts, on TikToks of like travel posts and things like that for a long time. So good for her for making that track that's going to get played over and over. I even think a track like "Let Me Love You Like a Woman" was pretty good. I mean, it's washed out and plotting, but it feels like a really intimate love song. And while I think Lana does a good job of like storytelling a lot in her songs, none of it ever feels like super incredibly personal. It all kind of feels a bit like she's telling someone else's story. And I think that's probably the thing that stood out most to me on this is it really feels like she tried to be little bit more vulnerable for her own
Mm.
experience on this. Although I don't know if that made the songs as gripping as I was hoping for.
Yeah, I kind of been waiting for her to tackle all the public
Yeah.
grief she often gets due to the things she says and the comments she makes. Again, right after North Fucking Rock and all the most critical claims she had gotten for her whole career, there was many new news cycles regarding things she said and did and all that, right?
Mhm.
And I think if you think about North Fucking Rockwell, they're actually like really memorable quotables on that from song to song. Usually about like men and relationships she's had with men, but like she knows how to make like punchy like bars almost when she wants to, and I would like to hear that from her. And by all means, if you want to talk your shit and piss people off, cool. Why not bring that into the music? I think it would add more personality. um Again, I found a lot of this pretty inaccessible. um Normal fucking Rockwell, you had a Sublime cover doing Time, which I think was awesome. This time at the end, you get a Joni Mitchell cover of For Free. How did you feel about going back to the cover well here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if she's gonna make this like something she does on her albums, and you can do worse than covering Joni
Mm.
Mitchell.
We
I
like
thought,
Miley Cyrus doing it
yeah,
last year.
and I thought it really fit for the whole vibe of the album. You know, so I was okay with it. I actually really liked the track "Breaking Up Slowly" though with Nikki Lane. I thought Nikki Lane's vocals really stood out to me on this whole thing. You know, you get a lot of Lana and a lot of like washed out stuff on this, but she really shone through at that point. So I was really impressed with that track too. So I mean, I don't think it's her best stuff. I don't think it's necessarily terrible music. I just think it's this trend of being stripped back. Now I do have to say, Dave, the next Antonoff project we probably know of is Lord. Is this stripped back acoustic trend going to keep going like Folklore and Evermore and now Chemtrails?
Ugh, I had not considered this until you brought it up, but that would be a very unfortunate. I can't have Lord's third album be a disappointment. I just can't have that. So I'm not gonna. I'm gonna choose not to think about that. But if you like Lana Del Rey or you don't, you don't have to wait long for more music because she just announced another album. Her eighth album, Rock Candy Sweet, is evidently out June 1st, 2021. We'll see if the date sticks, but she's been working.
We'll be talking about it too. Let's shift gears though to someone even more famous than Lana Del Rey, Justin Drew Bieber.
Is that
Did
his
you know?
real name?
Yeah, did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, Justin Drew, JDB. And guess what? He dropped "I Love My Wife," the album. I mean, but also I guess like with a
Learning from Chance.
but also yeah, but also a Martin Luther King quote in there.
We'll get to that.
Very odd. Justice dropped, and if you listen to Justin Bieber's album Changes, and was that last year, 2020,
Yep,
early,
February 2020.
pretty forgettable album. I would say probably the worst stuff he's put out. It seemed just incredibly uninspired at that point. Go check out our review to hear deeper thoughts on that. But you know, I thought some of the singles are coming out of this weren't too bad. I thought Holy was catchy. I didn't mind. What was the other single that came out? Lonely.
Mhm.
I thought Lonely was okay. So I was like, you know what? Maybe we're gonna get something a little bit different here from Biebs. Maybe we're gonna uh, be back to the old Bieber. But after listening to the rest of this album, I felt like we're kind of still just in this like he's
Mm,
happy, but not making super interesting music. What did you
huh.
think?
Interesting, interesting. So I think it's important to remember that Changes was 5 years in the making. It was a long
True.
time since Purpose, the highs of Bieber's career. And we've get to Changes, and it's unequivocally the most disappointing album of 2020. Album was
Mhm.
bad. Yummy, the lead single, sucks, right? Despite
Hey,
the
isn't it Grammy
perplexing
nominated?
Grammy nomination.
Yeah, I mean,
And that album was not well received. Important to remember, though, Justin Bieber, currently the number 2 artist on Spotify, Changes was the 8th best selling album of 2020 globally. It was successful for Justin Bieber. But I kind of had a hint that he didn't end up satisfied with how it all went because we started getting those singles pretty quick, man. You mentioned them. Holy and Lonely comes out. Monster with Shawn Mendes. And on those
mhm.
3 tracks, lyrically, it's like, oh wait, Justin is actually like somewhat grappling with like the layoff he had and like growing up in a certain sense in the public eye. It's like interesting to hear that. Because before what changes, it was like, oh, I'm just happy Justin Bieber's back and on the right path in his personal life, right? But
Mhm,
now he's actually bringing that into his music. That's cool because we weren't getting any of that on Changes, right? Changes was this really melodramatic. Uh,
mhm.
he wanted to call it R&B. It wasn't really R&B, but like it was just uninspired and not really interesting.
Right.
And Justice, it's not purpose. Clearly, there's no what do you mean or sorry on this. It's not that far. I think this is a lot closer to what he should be trying to do. Song to song. I think inserting Martin Luther King Jr. speeches as samples, both in the I believe the first track, uh, and then that MLK interlude song. That that's ill-advised. Let's say he's talked about wanting to use his platform for raising awareness, and but it has nothing to do with the rest of the album, and feels awfully performative to me. I think we can just completely remove that. No one was gonna hold it against you if you didn't talk about current affairs on your pop album. But I think there's some clear moments and some clear songs on Justice that are just leagues better than anything we got on Changes. So I'm just happy we are at least an upward trajectory in a certain sense.
I agree it's better for sure. I still just don't think this comes close to where he was before. And you know, to kind of just circle back to what you were just saying about the Martin Luther King stuff, definitely should use his platform to talk about the injustices that are out there, and there's plenty to choose from. Um, for me, it's just the rest of the album wasn't about this stuff. Like it really was just about he's very content with his life and being in love with his wife, and he tried really with one song to be like, sometimes I'm not so happy, or sometimes I get anxious, on unstable. But otherwise, the rest of it really is just like, Haley Baldwin, you are the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm very happy that we're together. Cool, good for you.
It's probably true. It seems like it is true. She was a
It
very positive
does,
influence on his life. Great for them. But yeah, it's a little one note most of the time.
for sure.
Definitely learned something from Chance after they made Holy.
Well, so tell me, what were the tracks that like stood out to you or that you liked a lot?
Yeah. So I think it's also important to note that the two songs I'm about to mention are both produced by Louis Bell, one of the most successful producers in pop music. Those would be Deserve You and Die For You featuring Dominic Fike. Deserve You has the Phil Collins kick drums, and boy do they work. I think that song production wise is great, and his vocal pitch actually like changes a lot. I think it's a really good performance from Justin. Uh, and then Die For You with like that's the 80s new disco everyone's doing, dude, and the song
I
is
know.
good. So like those two songs right there, I'm like, oh my god, like maybe he just needed to work with the right people again. Like no offense to Pooh Bear, but Louis Bell knows what fucking buttons to push. He's the reason Post Malone is who he is. So those songs like really sent me, gotta say.
Yeah, no, I would say definitely the one with Fike stood out to me. What was it called again? Die for You.
Yeah,
I thought that one was pretty good. I mean, Die for You really is just like that, like 80s like pop, like throwback kind of jam that everybody's going for. But it totally worked, and it sounds so different from everything else in the album. I kind of just wish he did more of it, like lean into that, and it made me think that if he had been maybe a little bit more mainstream when like Daft Punk was doing like Random Access Memories, I would have
hmm.
loved to have heard him like on a track like that, because I feel like he really could have popped off.
I mean, he was mainstream in
Well,
2013. Let's not
right, but I guess like
misspeak. But
he wasn't really in like the Daft Punk
no, his
lane
music
at
was
that
still
point.
quite evolving as he was like
Right,
still a teenager, I think. So
right.
yeah. Um,
Um, what else did you like?
Yeah, well, I mean, to die for you, like you said, like his verse when he starts out, like she's a stranger to the night shift. Look, I think that whole performance again, it sounds a lot like unlike the rest of the album. It's like a different kind of style from him. And in general, I feel like his vocal range, like his pitch, like whether it's a little more washed out in some of these choruses, or he's actually really just singing his heart out on some of the verses, like he's actually like doing a lot on this. And again, stark contrast the changes, which just felt so you know, down the middle, one note, almost monotone, like it just God changes
Yeah.
sucks. Uh, I also really liked Ghost. I think that's actually one of like the better like combinations of like lyrics and like still trying to make a big pop song. And then Peaches also with Daniel Caesar and Giveon. That one's got a music video out now. I think that one's really good. I like Bieber's performance on that, and I also just love the look for Giveon. Like he's
Mhm.
like probably top two male R&B these days. This is a great look for him, and also giving a look to Burna Boy. Not that Burna Boy's an unknown, but again, if just using his platform to put some, maybe lesser known artists to his casual fans is a nice bonus, I guess.
Yeah, no, certainly. I was glad to see Burner Boy on this for sure. I mean, I think it's funny because when I think about Bieber, I don't necessarily think about the albums that much. I think about the
No,
singles, and like you said, nothing reaches the highs of a lot of the songs off Purpose. I mean, I was back looking at the track list on Purpose before, and that 3 song run. What do you mean, sorry, and love yourself? All
yeah.
three in a row on the album. It's like, okay, just turn the album off after that. Like
Mm.
those three are just the best songs, some of the best
I,
songs you ever made.
I was listening to Company as well off Purpose this weekend, and that's like heavy electronic song. Maybe
Mhm.
Daft Punk and him could have done more of that. Per
That's
your
true.
initial suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, he was also doing "Where Are You Now" with Jack U at that point. So,
Right.
I mean, was that who was in Jack U? Was that
Skrillex and Diplo.
Skrillex?
Skrillex is
Yeah,
actually
that's
on
right.
two of these songs on Justice, funny enough.
Skrillex, man, haven't talked about him in a while.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
been waiting for a new Skrillex album. It is nowhere to be found.
we got a Porter Robinson album on the way, though, right?
Yeah, that is a long time coming as well.
um, Justin Bieber's definitely on the right trajectory now. We'll definitely have one of his tracks on the playlist. Dave, any parting thoughts on the Biebs? Drew,
True.
JD. He should go by JD. Let's get the Justin
JB,
rebrand going.
JD. Damn,
JD.
that'd be a tough rebrand, I think, for him because
Yeah.
he's probably the most famous JB at this point. So,
Oh, for sure.
at least in terms of SEO purposes, I don't know if he can go for a new set of initials. That might not be the best branding.
Why don't we move on to some television now? Back to Marvel, Dave. We got a week off from WandaVision, and
One
we're right
week.
back. It's been the Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus dropped, and I'm seeing a lot of some like middling takes on this. Right, I'm seeing people feeling like, WandaVision was weird, and it allowed itself to be weird, and this just feels like what Marvel was doing on Netflix before. Is this really what we want? And Dave, I gotta say, I kind of agree. I found this to be just kind of a pretty boring episode of television. And, obviously, they got a lot of groundwork. They're setting stuff up. They're trying to build these characters up and what the storyline's gonna be for the season. But yeah, I did not find myself super interested. How are you feeling after watching The Falcon and the Winter
Right.
Soldier?
So it's important to note that Falcon the Winter Soldier is only 6 episodes, and critics only got to see the first episode in advance. So there's no one really knows what's coming and whether anything gets paid off, right? So we really only have to go off this premiere. And yeah, this confirmed the fears I had about this show after seeing all of WandaVision. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Marvel world being enough to interest me anyway. Uh, and Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 1 teases some like thoughts about some interesting themes, particularly about Sam Wilson as a black public figure and taking on the mantle of Captain America and what that could mean to the rest of the country and to him as a black man. Do I have a lot of confidence they're actually going to tackle that in a meaningful way? No, flat out no. I don't have that confidence. Anthony Mackie actually has criticized Marvel's behind the scenes diversity in terms of the movies he's worked on. Like apart from Black Panther, is not a good track record. But I still don't know if that managed to find its way into the storytelling, right? And Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, I don't know if there's enough there on the bone to make anyone super invested. So what you get is just, as you kind of said before, it's just kind of basic Marvel stuff. And to some people, that's more than enough. Again, they're spending a lot of money on this, so the action looks, more or less movie level. So like, it's fun, and I'm sure it's gonna be
Mhm.
fun, and it's cool to see like returning characters. Like we got a little cameo from Rhodey, and we know Sharon Carter Emily Van Camp's character from the Captain America movies, and Zemo from Civil War. Like we know they're coming back, so like I guess that's cool to see. But like I don't think it's gonna even attempt to be transcendent, you know. So like I mean, WandaVision definitely stopped being weird towards the end and got a little more conventional Marvel, but it still had a lot more going on, and I just don't have a lot of faith in Falcon Winter Soldier being more than just kind of a straightforward story.
Yeah, I'm so one of the things in terms of like the press beforehand that I was most intrigued by was Anthony Mackie. I think in one of the interviews said that they have some sequences of action in this that will like rival John Wick, and I was like, oh,
Mm.
that's sick! I can't wait to see like the stunt choreography and how they kind of set this all up. But then I kind of took a step back and I was like, yeah, but a lot of the Marvel movies now have really great stunt choreography, and some we have like Blade coming up, which I'm sure is going to have like fucking sick choreography. Like this, it's probably not going to even compare to a lot of this stuff. And am I really watching a television show just to see people fight? And that,
No.
I mean, you can't certainly that. So for some people, that's all they really want to get out of these, and that's fine. But I think especially following something like WandaVision, you kind of look and say like, what's the angle here? Like, what is going to set this show apart? And I just don't know if they have enough with this show that with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier to keep things interesting. I think if they do kind of use what happened at the end of the episode in terms of like the new Captain America, and then like grappling with if Anthony Mackie or Sam, is Sam Wilson his name? I'm forgetting.
Yeah, Falcon is Sam Wilson. Yeah.
Sam Wilson, as the Black Captain America, like what that would be like. That's a really interesting show to explore. I just don't think Marvel has the guts to go there.
No. And
Yeah.
like I don't know about you, but like I don't give a fuck about Bucky at all, dude. Like going into Falcon the Winter Soldier, I actually rewatched Winter Soldier and Civil War. I hadn't rewatched either
Winter
of
Soldier is
ones
great.
since they come up, and Winter Soldier definitely holds up. That's definitely earned its reputation as a top tier Marvel film. Has a lot of fans. Because I just watched Winter Soldier, I actually recognized that George St. Pierre's character
Mm,
came back in the Falcon episode one as a like a goon villain dude from the movie. So I was like, oh wait, I just saw this dude, huh? That's cool, I guess. Some random ass villain who doesn't really matter. Um,
hey,
but like Bucky, man, Bucky's fucking killer, bro. I don't care if he was in control or not. Bucky fucking murdered people, dude. Tons
yeah,
of people. It's
lots.
like really stark in Winter Soldier, by the way. Like he like blatantly just fucking guts people out, dude.
Yeah,
And it reminds me a lot of like Jason Statham being brought back into the mix in the Fast and Furious movies after he kills Han. And well, now Han's back, but you know what I mean. And it's like everyone just kind of accepted that like we're forgiving Bucky, and like now in the show we're going down the road of he's making amends and trying to get over this PTSD, and he has his mind back, and it's like I guess that's cool and all, but I just don't feel like I care enough about Bucky without Steve Rogers. I don't know,
yeah,
like this is a show that like it makes sense. Marvel's making as much shit as they possibly can. Sure, here's like your continuation of the Captain America movies in a certain extent without Steve. I understand why this show exists,
mhm,
but I'm really skeptical of them actually taking it in super interesting place. And I like Zemo, by the way. Like I
yeah.
thought he was one of the better villains. So like there's potential, and like you have what's his name coming in as the new Captain America, like the U.S.
Oh,
agent character
Wyatt,
in the
right?
comics, Wyatt Russell.
Wyatt
So
Russell.
like there's some cool ideas there. Maybe how he conflicts with Sam Wilson. So I'm obviously gonna give Malcolm Spellman, Kerry Scoglin, and crew. Like I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt here, but I'm just quite skeptical.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep watching. But I think if there's not something that comes out of this that like leaves me feeling like okay, this really captured my interest, I really might just be like tuning into the Marvel shows, just like the ones I just am interested in, instead of it being like appointment viewing. And that's what I'm worried about with this. Is
Yeah.
that I don't know. I don't know if it holds enough gravitas for me.
Well, that's the thing. You think about the future of Marvel and Disney Plus, and like there's some stuff that seems legitimately intriguing. Like I actually think Loki that trailer did a great job of actually making it feel compelling as like a kind of like a heist, like fun vibe, right?
Hmm.
Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like it never tried to be anything but kind of straight down the middle, like more of an action show,
Right.
right? So like Loki sounds cool and Hawkeye TBD and Moon Knight. Obviously, we want to see Oscar
Yeah.
Isaac because Moon Knight is a new character, right? Miss Marvel
Yeah.
show the same way. But like this, like I don't know, like are you stoked about Armor Wars with Rhodey and Don Cheadle? You
Yeah.
know,
See,
what is that going to be? Like,
I, I think that that's actually a really good point. Is like Marvel, the where Stage 4 is going in terms of the movies is so diverse and so interesting and in so many like weird new directions. It's like, yeah, give me that stuff. But the television show, it's like, I don't know. I'm not totally sure. I'm like, but I mean, like you mentioned a couple there that sound interesting. But yeah, the roadie stuff, like, no way.
well,
I don't
and
know.
I think that's the thing too. Like, if you're like deep in the MCU, I think WandaVision, whether a lot of it's consequence or not, you knew Wanda was going to progress in a certain sense, and we knew she was going to be back in Doctor Strange too, and Monica's going to be in Captain Marvel too. So you felt like there was actually some progression here. It just feels like Sam and Bucky and everyone else involved, like it just feels like kind of like a dead end.
Mhm.
Like we are so far away from any of these guys popping up in a team up movie again if they ever do. So I feel like in a sense this and Armor Wars and who knows maybe Hawkeye as well feels like a bit of wheel spinning. Like
Yeah.
Hawkeye, we get you got a feeling like they'll spin that off right with Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop, and they just announced
Mhm.
another spin off in the works with a different character. So like that makes more sense to me. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm afraid it might just feel like a dead end.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I like both Sebastian Stan. I like all the actors in this.
Yeah,
Anthony Mackie's great. So I really hope that it ends up being more interesting than I'm thinking it's going to be. But man, if the second show they put out is just a huge dud, I feel like that's not a good start to this
and
TV
it's funny they wanted
venture.
this to be their first show. If COVID hadn't happened, this would have been the first show coming out in 2020.
Tough, 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 tough. All right. Well, why don't we move from one superhero universe to another? Because Dave, after long last, we finally got the Snyder cut. I mean, I can't believe it. I can't, really, like when we first talked about it after we saw Justice League, what, like 4 years ago now?
And the
3?
2017 it came out.
Jeez. Uh, we, there's already the hashtags release the Snyder cut, and obviously Zack Snyder stepped away from the project after his daughter, um, you know, commit suicide, and I mean, rightfully so. Anyone would do that, and Joss Whedon came in and kind of made a movie that was, I think, a little bit lighter in tone, that was a little bit more just like down the middle. And everything we heard from the actors involved and people involved is this is not what they had signed on for. That people were bagging on some of the CGI. You had Henry Cavill who had the CGI mustache taken out.
Yeah,
It's just like,
Mission Impossible, baby.
yeah, which
Worth it. Worth keeping the mustache. That movie rules.
totally worth it. But you know, uh, people were saying, this doesn't do Zack Snyder justice. So he got his justice, and HBO gave him the money, and he came back and he made the project he wanted to make. Dave, is the Snyder Cut better than the original Justice League?
Yeah, I'd say it's better. Does
How
that
much
make it
better?
good? No, it doesn't. But I'd definitely say it's better. And I think when we watched Justice League, and I think it was November 2017. We knew some of the behind the scenes stuff, but we didn't know everything. We didn't know that Whedon only used apparently like around 10% of what Zach had shot.
Mhm.
80 new pages. And the way Ray Fisher puts it, almost everything he was in, he had to redo. So like there were substantial changes, and hence why that movie cost $300 million and lost Warner Brothers around $60 million because it just cost way too much money, you know? And that was why I thought the Snyder Cut was just so far out of the realm of possibility because uh, it was already a sunk cost. Justice League, just give it up, right? But they
Mhm.
ended up giving Zach $70 million more to do some reshoots. Remember when we talked about the Snyder Cut existing when there was that big official announcement about it? The official announcement didn't tell us that he was reshooting anything.
Yeah,
It was just like new ADR, like new lines and stuff, and just using what his cut footage was. We didn't know he was getting 70 fucking million more bills to work with, right?
crazy.
So it's just kind of funny how the information has come out from back when it all started, right?
Mhm.
But obviously, huge campaign to restore Zack Snyder's vision,
Original vision.
his creative vision, and we found we did get that, and Zach definitely played into that along the way, sharing storyboards and sharing
Mhm.
screen caps and stuff. And I think the clamoring for the Snyder cut, you can go multiple ways with it because obviously they did a lot of good. Like a lot of those fans raised a lot of money for suicide prevention and stuff like that. Obviously, quite commendable. But
Yep.
there's also some nastiness to it and a lot of negativity fired at people that work at Warner Brothers who weren't like openly supporting restoring any aspect
Right.
of what Slander had done. So it's a complicated story, and I think there's a lot you can read about this. Some direct stories made, interviews with Zach. Vanity Fair did a great job. They actually went to the
Mhm.
set when he was reshooting, and also there's a profile in New York Times. So there's a lot of information you can officially
Lot.
on the record read about this stuff. I advise people to check that out. It's good to kind of get the official word after all the rumor mongering that's gone on since 2017. And of course, Ray Fisher's stuff still feels kind of ongoing, given his allegations against Joss Whedon and also the
Yep.
WB brass. But anyway, what we got, right? 70 million more dollars in the can. And you got 4 hours and 2 minutes. Zack Snyder's Justice League. And not only that, but it's presented in a pseudo 4:3 aspect ratio, which would be preferable for IMAX, apparently. Maybe we get an IMAX release of this in the future. Thought that was
Maybe.
a little funny.
Yep.
Didn't end up bothering me watching
No.
it. But yeah, man, it's 4 fucking hours. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the original Justice League was what, like 2.5, I think?
No, it was two. That's the
Only
thing.
2.
Like
Yeah, they
it,
cut it down to make it
it was
more.
lopped the fuck off.
Yeah. And I mean, what do we really get from the new stuff? We get a lot more cyborg backstory.
hmm
I think we get more Barry Allen
Yeah, he
backstory.
doesn't have backstory originally. That's all cut out in the theatrical.
And then we get some more CGI fight scenes, which look awesome. I think, the slow down action got to be a little much for me. Like I wanted to just like, I just wanted some of these scenes to like get going. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, like,
we could have saved 10 minutes if we didn't do some slow motion stuff.
yeah, it was some of it got to be a little redundant to me, but I mean, in all in all, I found myself feeling like this vision made more sense, and it also made more sense in terms of like giving Snyder this role of making the Avengers like movie of DC,
hmm
for whatever way we have to compare the two,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, and he definitely set more stuff up, and it feels like okay, like I get where they wanted to take things with this. They mentioned the multiverse in this, so then you're
hmm
kind of thinking of all these timelines and stuff. Like it made a lot more sense for what DC wanted to do. I just don't know if it made the movie good.
Well, and I think there's a lot of problems again. And Zack Snyder, he is not the most subtle or nuanced
Oh
filmmaker.
no.
No one would say anything to the contrary, right? But there's also some blame to lay at Warner Brothers because they forced him to make one Justice League movie when initially they wanted to do two. And Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League is 4 hours because he's trying to adequately serve everything he was trying to accomplish in just one film. Again, you're introducing Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg for the first time while also being a team up movie like in Avengers. That
Mhm.
is way too much to accomplish in one film. Hence why the 2 hour theatrical of Justice League is nonsense.
Yeah.
And this is just way too long. So it's clearly bad form. It is
Mhm.
not good filmmaking to do it this way. It doesn't make sense. But you understand why it's this long because of the list of things that had to be checked off. Again, given the initial restraint put on the plan, right?
Sure.
I will say too, going into Zack Snyder's Justice League, I rewatched Man of Steel and Batman for Superman Ultimate Edition. I watched 9+ hours of Zack Snyder last week, so I'm fresh.
Come at me, bro. I'm fresh.
And I gotta say, it's downward spiral. Like each one is worse than the last.
Hmm.
And Batman vs Superman Ultimate Edition, a little extra connective tissue with those extra scenes. The hardcore fans were right. It does make it pretty solid. I think that movie's all right. It's all right.
Mhm.
Man of Steel, I genuinely like.
Yeah, Master's
Wasn't for the
good.
last 45 minutes where it's nonstop fighting. I thought it could have been great. And it's one of those movies that you're almost mad it wasn't great. You
Mhm.
know, but I like Man of Steel. And
Yeah,
this, it's like, and now, like, hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Like, now all the fans want to see where Zack Snyder Justice League leaves off. He is an ambiguous cliffhanger. Martian Manhunter showed up. Obviously, Darkseid is actually present in this version of the film, in
Darkseid's
addition to
dead now
Steppenwolf.
though.
And people want to see,
Oh no,
the fight
Darkseid's not dead.
against
Sorry,
Darkseid. I understand that.
that's right.
And like, I think that's been the whole thing. It's like Zack Snyder's vision, Zack Snyder's vision. And the critics are like, yeah, well, do we care about Zack Snyder's vision? Is it that good? Again, pointing to what we had seen. And like, I see the plan. I see what the vision was. And yeah, there's flaws all over the place, but at the same time, like, you can't help but feel like it's just a colossal bag fumble by WB, because you were fucking committed at this point,
Yeah,
man. To just cut off the legs like this, self-inflicted wound. But at the same time, now where DC is at now, I don't think they can go back and finish this off in any way. Like, I think they just need to move on.
right. And that's the hard thing is where it leaves off with you know, uh, big table, 6 chairs with room for more, and it's such a I mean, I think what the Snyder cut does, I mean, it's 4 hours, so you have plenty of time to give every character their shine, and I do think it does a pretty good job of, like, giving the ball to each character to
Especially Cyborg.
yeah, Cyborg's, I mean, backstory really gets fleshed out in this. I mean, Barry Allen still there's a lot to go there, but we'll maybe eventually get a Flash movie.
It goes into production next month, apparently. So
Sure.
it's happening. And
I'm
the
with
next
it.
year it comes out.
But it's also like I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is such a Batman centric thing. Like they're setting him up to be the like I don't know head of the Justice League in a sense. And if, in the comics, which I remember from my youth, Batman was always just kind of like the badass of the Justice League. Like
Yeah.
he did his own
Usually
thing.
Superman's more the leader. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, "Man, I'm gonna do my own thing. F you guys, whatever." And in this, it's like, no, okay, Bruce Wayne is obviously gonna be like the old man of all this, which I'm cool with, but I'm also like, and I like don't want to do this no more. Like,
Well,
what's the point?
that's another interesting part of this, right? Is not everything is necessarily on Warner Brothers, right? You can talk to Joe Manganiello, right? He comes back as Deathstroke, and we had that scene at the end of Justice League, the Stinger scene that comes back in this, where he talks to Luthor on the yacht, and then in the brand new dream sequence, nightmare scene, you get Deathstroke again with a nice new mohawk.
Mhm.
But if you talk to Joe Manganiello, he's on the record with Vanity Fair about this. He initially filmed that scene for the end of Justice League because it was supposed to tie into the Batman movie Ben Affleck was going to make. He was going to be the villain to Batman, Deathstroke. And Ben Affleck fell out of that movie. He dropped out in pre-production. So that just completely fell apart. And they basically repurposed that cameo Stinger scene to be teasing a future Justice League movie that they didn't make. Right? So it's like there's a lot of stops and starts. Of course, the Flash movie, right? They've been making a Flash movie since before Justice League came out. It's been gone through several writers and several directors. And leading into this last week when I was really diving in, I looked up, Captain America, Chris Evans was cast as Captain America about a year earlier than Henry Cavill was cast as Superman. We've got Henry Cavill in three and a half movies, and we've got Steve Rogers, Captain America, in seven,
Yeah,
or yeah, seven. And DC just like, and like you look at the future, right? And like you kind of see what they're doing. They're not like necessarily like super continuity
multiverse,
focused the way MCU is.
baby.
Multiverse coming in the Flash, but like the volume of movies is still low. Like we're getting The Suicide Squad coming out in August, and we're getting Aquaman 2 at the end of next year, right after The Flash, and you're getting Shazam 2 in the early 2023. But that's still a 4-year gap between Shazam 1 and 2 and Aquaman 1 and 2. How the fuck are you doing that? Aquaman 1 is the highest grossing DC movie ever, $1.4 billion. Why the fuck it take 4 years to make a sequel to this?
Yeah,
You know?
it's insane. And it's kind of disappointing because I wouldn't have hated to see more Justice League movies. Like Wonder
Mm.
Woman, 1984. We talked about it, didn't love it, but I still think Gal Gadot is a great Wonder Woman. I think Batman in this or I think Ben Affleck in this version of Batman's very interesting.
He's
Cavill is
he's
the
a good
best
Bruce
Superman
Wayne.
there's ever been. Yeah, so
Definitely. Yeah.
all these all these characters, and I don't even hate Ezra Miller as the Flash. I think he's fine. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
pretty funny.
it's a take, but yeah, it's fine. And I'm just like, man, they really like fumbled all of this stuff, and I think now it just feels so disjointed. I wonder if maybe like they explain something away where like Bruce dies, and then Wonder Woman takes up the mantle of like running the Justice League, and start branching out to other
Well,
characters. I don't know.
and that's what's so weird about it, right? Is we know they're making a Wonder Woman 3. Patty and Gal are on signed on. They fast tracked that officially right after 1984 came out, probably due to the negative reception.
Mhm.
Either way, we know that's coming. So like she's the only constant it feels like her and Momoa's Aquaman,
Yep.
like and Flash, but like maybe it's all leading up to Flashpoint in the Flash, right? Ben
Yeah.
Affleck is coming back as well as Keaton, right? Like
Hmm.
having Affleck actually come back again kind of surprised me. And I think now it gives a lot of like hardcore Snyder fans like something to latch onto. It's like, oh man, you can convince Affleck to come back again and do that movie. Even Zack Snyder, like I don't know if Ben wants to do that.
Hmm.
So, but what we're left with, right, is again, we mentioned it, Flash, Aquaman 2, Wonder Woman 3 eventually, Shazam 2 on the media horizon. Black Adam apparently also going into production in the next month or so. Again, another movie that's been in development and we've been cast for ages at this point. But like Blue Beetle apparently is coming, going into production in the fall, and Michael B. Jordan's producing a Static Shock movie. Again, that feels far off. And we just got announced today Emerald Fennell's writing for a Zatanna movie. But at the same time, in about a year, we're getting The Batman from Matt Reeves with Robert Pattinson, which is pointedly
Yeah.
not connected to this, just like how Joker with Joaquin Phoenix was not connected to anything else.
Mhm.
And I've generally been pretty supportive of the DC plan of just make good stuff and don't necessarily worry about connecting every little thing.
Right.
But now at this point, I feel like if they try and make a continuation of what Snyder has left us here, you're almost recommitting to that old plan,
Mhm.
So it's a little confusing, I think.
It's definitely confusing, and I think for where they're at right now, what we know is coming down the pike, we have to kind of take the first route that you talked about, where it's like things don't have to connect, just make good movies, and the rest will kind of follow suit. If they can somehow get the crew back together for a Justice League 2, I'd watch it. But if not, and this is what we get, and at least I'm glad we got to see what it was intended to be. And I think DC fans seem to feel mostly satisfied with this, and the reviews are so much better for this than the original Justice League.
Definitely,
So,
definitely.
man, I never thought I'd watch a 4-hour Justice League movie though.
And that's the thing. It's like there's still like flaws to be had, and of course, it's like weird
Hmm.
scenes and stuff. And like you kind of got to. It's 4 hours. It's like a lot to ask you to like pay like super close attention to stuff. But there's a lot of like dream sequence scenes before the final, one that's making all the headlines. Like there's lots of like those kind of like non full reality scenes that like if you don't pick up on them, you might not understand like some of the motivations going on for what's going on, what the characters are doing, right? But some scenes that were extended longer, I liked better, like the Themyscira attack Steppenwolf does to get that mother box. That's like way longer,
Yeah,
and I thought that was pretty good. And Steppenwolf redesign actually, I think, kind of works. Like you can like the armor is kind of
yeah,
cool, I guess. But
I
in
like
general,
the
like
armor.
Steppenwolf has like a little more under the hood in terms of like motivations to like win back his getting the good graces of Darkseid and friends and stuff,
Yeah,
and like
I really
talking
sympathize with him this time.
not even not even that, but like you feel like you understand like more of what was happening on the villain side versus that's the bad guy. You gotta stop the bad guy,
Hmm. Right.
and like the anti-life stuff. Like, was that name dropped at all in the theatrical cut? I have no recollection. I did not rewatch the theatrical cut.
I gotta say, it's a little hard to watch like the mother box thing again and then be like, oh, Infinity Stones, mother boxes, like these fucking
Yeah,
MacGuffins are, they're everywhere in these films, which is kind of how they go. Like you kind
yeah.
of have to have these things propel it forward. It's just as funny. No, I agree. I think like definitely you just get to flesh things out more. Anytime you make a 4-hour movie, if you somehow don't flesh things out more, that would be a huge whiff. So like he had to, I guess, with this amount of time. I wanted to ask though, because you mentioned it, the dream sequence at the end.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. That feels like Zack's being like, "This was my last crack. They
Yep.
somehow gave me money again. Let's do something cool." He basically said, like, "I thought it was a shame that Ben Affleck's Batman and Leto's Joker never got to have a scene together. You know, there's the
Mhm.
cameo scene in Suicide Squad one, but like that doesn't really count, right? So it's like, yeah, you know what? Cool. And because we had already seen these like nightmare, like dream alternate realities from Bruce, I guess it makes sense to me. And because we learn more about like what Darkseid was got going on and how Lois is the fucking key, bro. Like I understand what it means, but ultimately, yeah, it's like super superfluous, right? But
Yeah,
like
well,
it's cool to see them all hang out for a second. I think that people go a little overboard, like praising like the interaction between Joker and Batman. Like it was good, I liked it, but like
it was
we don't have
fine.
to take it like too far.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I still don't really love Jared, wow. Jared Leto
Jetto,
as the Joker. I don't really find him super compelling. Or I mean, it's definitely a take. Like we've said, it's a take on Batman. I was glad to see the tattoos gone.
Hmm.
That was a step
I
up.
always appreciate Leto's attempt at trying to be different, even if it's not the best. You know, like at least it wasn't a copycat of someone else. They give him that.
I
Um,
guess it just felt so on the nose, but again, it's a dream sequence, so it's
yeah,
not something that would.
right. That's the thing. It's actually funny to look back on this too, because in that scene you have Mira Amber Heard, and she's talking in this like Shakespearean almost accent, which is not what she used in the other scene,
Right.
nor in Aquaman.
Hmm.
And like also you have that scene with Mira and Arthur Aquaman where they're like talking in those bubbles, right?
Hmm.
Since the first Justice League movie, we got Aquaman from James Wan, and they don't talk in bubbles. So I guess that was just like a matter of like they couldn't reshoot that scene, so they still talk in bubbles in this movie. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, but we got Defoe showing up. He wasn't in the
Yeah.
theatrical cut as a Volko.
And was Barry Allen's dad? Who was it again?
Billy Crudup.
Yeah, Billy Crudup. Was he in the original one? I don't
I
remember him.
think I think you get those prison scenes, but you don't get the scene with Kiersey Clemens as Iris.
Gotcha. Hmm. I mean, overall, I like I was saying, I'm glad we got this, and I think I'm really happy for DC fans. I mean, all this goes to show is if you're annoying enough on the internet, you can get what you want. So
Are you interested in the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad? I personally am not because I've seen recent David Ayer movies and I don't have any faith in that cut being worth the investment.
yeah,
And again,
we
also it feels like back. Why do we let the look backward? You're literally making a fucking new Suicide Squad movie with James Gunn. It's already made. Like,
yeah.
put that shit to bed. I'm sorry.
Uh,
Like
I'm
we're going this way, not that way. Like,
I am not interested in that
yeah.
at all. So, um, but yeah, I mean, good for people. Any last thoughts on the Snyder cut, Dave?
Well, we did kind of touch on this when the news came out, but Ta-Nehisi Coates developing a Superman film.
Mhm.
J.J. Abrams producing. Assumption it's a black Superman film, not Clark Kent, probably Calvin Ellis or something, but black Superman. You know, and JJ's also apparently developing a Constantine HBO Max show. We know James Gunn right now is shooting Peacemaker, which is a spin-off of Suicide Squad featuring John Cena's character from the new movie. Got those TV shows coming out. New Superman. What's Henry Cavill up to, man? Is he making one? We know Ben Affleck's probably on the way out. He'll be in Flash, and that's probably it for him. And no one's gonna blame him for that after we know why he's leaving. But if does it feel like Henry Cavill? There's still nothing in sight for him. Is he ever going to be Superman again? Again, he's
Man,
been in 3.5 movies. He was cast in 2011.
the thing is, I don't know if there's anyone more perfect to play Superman. Like he really is the perfect casting.
Right. And again, I would have loved to see a new one where it wasn't the origin story. I think Man of Steel has a lot of ambition and like a lot to really like.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
it's kind of frustrating that like you didn't even make like an Iron Man 2 before you made Avengers with Batman vs Superman. Like everyone knows these critiques at this point, but again, you can do both. You can make the Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman movie and still keep Henry Cavill going. And again,
yeah.
again, it feels weird, right? Because like we're gonna have a new Wonder Woman and a new Aquaman and a Flash finally, but Cavill's gone. It just feel kind of strange. But
It does
again, like
feel
it's all kind of
strange.
all over the place. So I just hope the movies are good.
Yeah, I think there's also like a piece of me that feels a little sad. We're probably not going to see Eisenberg as Lex
Like,
Luthor. You know,
yeah,
even though like I don't know if I loved what we did see of it, I wouldn't mind seeing like him just being full bald Lex Luthor. Let's see it.
yeah.
Give it to
Again,
me.
kind of like Leto, but I think more effectively. He's doing a different interpretation of Lex. He's not trying to copy Gene Hackman or just do it was always done in the animated shows.
Hmm.
I like his Lex enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of sad talking about this almost in a way because, like you said, there is so much like potential that's just left on the cutting room floor at this
Yeah.
point.
So
With
it's
it.
weird finality and stuff.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, again, there's like 10 movies in active development.
Right. Oh man. All right. Well, why don't we wrap up there? What do we got for next week, Dave?
So not a whole lot yet for next week. New music from Vic Mensa and 24K Golden. And also, finally, the PVOD debut of The Father, the Oscar hopeful movie starring Best Actor nominee Anthony Hopkins.
It's better be good.
He made us wait this fucking long.
Better be
Sorry.
good. That's all I'm gonna say. Well, again, follow us at Nowstalgia on Twitter, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, and check the show notes for our Spotify playlist, Nostalgia Best of 2021. We'll see you next week.